Hi, my name is Rich Roberts. I'm a medical doctor, a doctor of biophysics, and for 24 years, I was a president and a CEO in the pharmaceutical company. I wanted to make this video quickly just to tell everybody in probably about 5 minutes or less everything you need to know about the conflict going on now in the Middle East between Hamas and Israel and the Palestinians in general. This is the one point you need to know. You can hear all this baloney, all these excuses, all this stuff. Here's what you need to know. The state of Israel was in control of the territory of Gaza. The state of Israel had troops in there and completely militarily controlled Gaza. In the year 2005, Israel decided to withdraw all of its troops from Gaza, and also Israel had communities there. Israel evacuated all the Jews from all the Jewish communities in Gaza and left. That was 2005. And there were actually a number of liberal-minded Jewish people around the world who contributed tens of millions of dollars to buy some of the facilities that the Jews were leaving behind as they evacuated so that Israel would not destroy them. So the Palestinians of Gaza, when the Jews left, were left with massive greenhouses where they could have grown tons of crops, sold them and had an industry going and all kinds of buildings. So the Jews around the world contributed that money, bought those things so they'd be left behind for the Palestinians. Since 2005, there's no talk of occupation, nothing. Israel withdrew. Now, the Palestinians in Gaza had the ultimate opportunity to show the world that they want peace, they want democracy, they want progress. They could have had free elections and developed the organs of government to ensure justice. What happened? What happened was Hamas, a radical Islamist terrorist organization, took over Gaza, and they started then sending suicide bombers from Gaza into Israel to blow up buses, to blow up pizza stores, all with people in there. So Israel built a wall to keep them out. So what did they do in Gaza? Then they started to arm themselves to the teeth with rockets, to shoot rockets over the wall into Israel, and the rockets had hundreds of pounds of explosives on them. Now Israel has developed Iron Dome. So what did the Palestinians in Gaza start doing, Hamas? They started burrowing under the ground, digging deep tunnel complexes. There have been billions and billions of dollars of aid that's gone into Gaza, and the Hamas leaders have either stolen it for themselves, for their own luxuries, or they've used it for military purposes. So in Hamas, the Palestinians, in Gaza, the Palestinians, Hamas, have burrowed massive underground tunnel complexes all the way across into Israel. And their purpose was to pop up and kidnap Israelis and hold them for ransom. And people in Israel complained to the government that at night while they're sleeping, they heard digging going on underneath them. So now Israel has been bombing those tunnels. Israel uses tremendous intelligence. But the point is, forget all the baloney, all right? Who wants peace? Israel wants peace, period. Who wants war? Hamas, and the Palestinians want war. Now you might say, well, Hamas only controls half of the Palestinian population that's in Gaza. The Palestinian Authority controls the other half plus or minus, in the West Bank. So who controls the Palestinian Authority? Mahmoud Abbas. He is in the 16th year of his 4-year term. He was elected president for 4 years. He's now in his 16th year with no re-elections, and he's the one who decides whether there's elections or not. Recently, he called for elections, but what did he find out? He found out that the majority of the Palestinians were going to vote for Hamas. The majority of the Palestinians were going to vote for the exact terror group that has been lobbing 1,700 rockets with bombs on them into Israel over the last 3 days, and have been trying to dig tunnels under Israel. And if you don't follow it, you don't know, but they fire off rockets every now and then in Israel. They've been doing it for the last 16 years. And more recently, over the last few years, Hamas has been creating balloons and with attaching fire-causing devices to them. And the balloons would go up, and the current takes them over Israel. The balloons pop, they come down. They've been setting off fires. They've been destroying all kinds of farmland and natural habitat for animals. So what you're looking at now is there is one group that is based on hate, the hatred of Jews. So when they say, Palestinians say, free Palestine, what they mean is get rid of all the Jews. They don't want any Jews. And they don't make any secret about it. Even the Palestinian Authority says if they ever get their own nation on the West Bank, they want all the Jewish settlements gone. Well, why is that? There's over 1 million Arabs that live in Israel that have full rights. They have members of the Knesset, which is like our Congress, that are Arabs, that are actually speak out against Israel. They have freedom of religion, freedom to go work. They have all these things. Israel doesn't make them leave. It's actually about 1.5 million or 2 million Arabs now at this point. As a matter of fact, some of the Israelis that have been killed by the rockets from Hamas have been Arab citizens of Israel. One was an Arab father and a child. So. But the Palestinian Authority is also, why do they want to get rid of the settlements? Because they want apartheid. Leftists will call Israel an apartheid state. It's exactly the opposite. In Israel, the Arabs live free. They have the ability to prosper, get education. It's the Palestinians who don't want any Jews. The Palestinians want an apartheid state. I talk about racist. It's the Palestinians that have shown tremendous racism towards Jews, and they don't want any Jews allowed. You'll see the European Union say, talk about some kind of equivalency here. There is no equivalency. Israel left Gaza 16 years ago. All the Palestinians had to do was show that they want democracy, they want stability, they want freedom, they want industry, they want jobs. And instead, they've taken the billions and billions of dollars of aid that's come from the world, including the United States, and they've used it to arm themselves to the teeth and to attack Israel. So people say, well, should have a ceasefire, immediately a ceasefire. Okay, so those people say they want ongoing conflict. They want ongoing death. Because as long as you have Hamas there in Gaza, they're not going to stop. They're only interested in killing the Jews. They're only interested in destroying Israel. They don't mind their people being in poverty. They did almost nothing to help their people during COVID. You just go on and on. We hear people say things. They talk about, well, is Israel's response proportional? Proportionate to what? You need to see the equal number of Israelis die as Palestinians? That's what you call. That's what you want? How about you want peace, which means you want to get rid of the group that is the source of continuous warfare and terror, and that's Hamas. That's a solution. Proportionality, that's somebody who's just either hates Jews, hates Israel, or is just ignorant. I saw that Vice President Kamala Harris's niece, who's apparently a lawyer and a leftist, tweeted out, that if you're for all these different left causes, the rights for people that choose a lifestyle this way and that way, then you have to side with the Palestinians. Excuse me, most of those lifestyles you're talking about, people are murdered, they are executed for if they have those lifestyles in Arab countries, especially Iran. And by the way, Iran controls Hamas. It's in Israel, which is a democracy, that people have freedom and defense from legitimate legal system. They talk about this whole thing being kicked off by 4, 5, or 6 Palestinian families who are about to be evicted from their homes. Well, excuse me, again, that's a bunch of lies. Jews versus Arabs have gone to court in the Israeli courts, which are legitimate courts, which are courts with integrity, and many times the Arabs have won, and they've beaten the Jews in those courts. You don't get the kind of justice in those Arab countries. But I want to tell you something else. You know who's fed up with the Palestinians? The Arab countries are fed up with the Palestinians. Egypt is fed up with the Palestinians. Jordan is fed up with the Palestinians. Saudi Arabia is fed up with the Palestinians. Jordan is fed up with the Palestinians. The United Arab Emirates is fed up with the Palestinians. Bahrain is fed up with the Palestinians. They can see that over these last 16 years, since Israel, no occupation, the occupiers, they're not occupying Gaza. Israel left Gaza. Israel has to go in there on occasion to try to stop the terrorists who keep trying to attack Israel. But what's beyond a shadow of a doubt is the Palestinian leadership, as elected by and supported by the Palestinian people, due to actually the Palestinian leadership indoctrinating the Palestinian people from grade school onward for the last 40 years, they want one thing. They want to destroy Israel and kill all the Jews. It's just no mistaking about that. So when you hear all this baloney going on, you just have to say one thing. You were given your chance. Israel withdrew. You had all of Gaza, and you could have made your democracy. You could have had economic empowerment. You had billions of dollars of aid come in, and all you wanted to do, all you want to focus on, was destroying Israel. So if you want this thing to end, if you want this not to happen again, the whole world should support Israel in destroying Hamas. And the whole world should boycott Iran, who's funding Hamas, and also Islamic Jihad and giving the orders, and continue the boycott against them, the sanctions against Iran. And I don't know how you're going to get any kind of democracy or stability. By the way, Israel would happily let Egypt take over Gaza. Israel captured Gaza from Egypt in 1967. Nobody wants it. Israel doesn't want it. Egypt doesn't want it. Give them their own country. Well, you can see what they do when they have a chance to have their own country, meaning when Israel's not there, Israel withdraws. All they do is arm themselves to the teeth. So there's one right party here, and there's one wrong party. Those who support Israel are right. Those who support Hamas are wrong, flat out wrong. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to my channel, and I wish you all the best.